when they disappear. No tears for black girls, like they were never here. But we remember, we'll speak their names. Their stories matter. We'll break these chains. No tears left to cry, just truth to find. Justice delayed is justice denied.
The yellow house at 553 Sheldon Avenue SE stood a mile south of downtown Grand Rapids. From the sidewalk, you'd first notice its broad front porch with wooden railings, weathered by Michigan's harsh seasons. The two-story clapboard structure absorbed rather than reflected the weak March sunlight. Built in 1903, the home spoke through its sounds, wooden floors that announced every footstep with distinctive creaks the family could identify by person, radiators that clanked and hissed in winter, windows that rattled when west winds blew. The Southeast community carries contradictions in its very foundation. Once stately homes like 553 Sheldon stand alongside vacant lots. Corner stores with bullet-resistant glass operate blocks from trendy coffee shops, signals of gentrification creeping southward from downtown. At night, distant sirens become part of the soundtrack, along with buses rumbling down nearby Division Avenue. Neighbors here develop selective attention, knowing when to look and when to mind their business. Not from indifference, but survival. To understand what was lost at 553 Sheldon Avenue, you need to know the women who called it home. Jacqueline Baber Bay, 65, was the gravitational center that held generations together. Barely 5 feet tall, with deep brown eyes that missed nothing, she commanded attention without raising her voice. For over 20 years, she worked at a local nursing home, where colleagues remembered her as the kind of caregiver who tracked not just medical needs, but birthdays, grandchildren's names, and favorite foods. Her home reflected her nurturing spirit, walls adorned with family photos, refrigerator covered with children's artwork, cupboards stocked for Sunday dinners. Shirletta Baber Bay, Jacqueline's 47-year-old daughter, had lived in the yellow house her entire life. Friends described her as shy but sweet, with a laugh that burst out unexpectedly like summer rain. She took pride in her meticulously arranged collection of elephant figurines and had only recently entered her first serious romantic relationship. "My sister was like a teenager in love," Anya Griffin, Shirletta's sister, told me, her voice catching. She'd never had anyone before. She called me about little things he did, bringing her coffee, walking her to the bus stop, small gestures that meant the world to her. What Shirletta couldn't know was that these small kindnesses were calculated, tools of manipulation wielded by a practiced predator. Keyona Griffin, at 25, represented the family's future. Born March 8, 1994, she had celebrated her birthday just 5 days before her murder. With warm amber-brown skin and a wide smile revealing slightly crooked front teeth. She hated them. Everyone else found them endearing. Keyona was the family spark plug. She organized celebrations, created new traditions, and dreamed aloud. She was planning to go back to school, her brother Sanford Cummings II told reporters. She wanted to work with kids, maybe become a teacher. She was always corralling the little cousins at family gatherings, doing art projects with them. On her phone, later recovered from the crime scene, investigators found dozens of screenshots of apartment listings. Keyona had been planning to move out, to start her independent life. She never got the chance. Daryl Demon Brown cultivated invisibility. In an age where most people leave constant electronic footprints, Brown was a ghost. No social media, no bank accounts, no credit cards, no registered phone, nothing tying him to any specific location or identity. Even his appearance was designed for anonymity, clean-shaven, average height and build, wearing nondescript clothing that left no impression. Surveillance footage captured after the murders shows him in a plain gray hoodie and jeans, an outfit blending in anywhere. Born February 3, 1974, Brown grew up in Grand Rapids and graduated from a local high school. But his early life remains largely a mystery, one of many gaps in a biography that seems deliberately incomplete. What we do know comes primarily from his criminal history and from women who survived relationships with him. The pattern is consistent and disturbing. He starts out as the perfect gentleman, explained Dr. Catherine Wilson, a forensic psychologist I consulted about domestic abusers who escalate to homicide. He's attentive, seemingly devoted. Then comes isolation, cutting victims off from friends and family. Then control, monitoring movements, dictating who they can talk to. Then threats. And finally, violence. This was precisely the progression described by a woman Brown dated in 2005. Court records show that when she attempted to end their relationship, he tied her up with electrical cords, gagged her with a sock, kicked her in the face, and doused her in lighter fluid, threatening to set her on fire. She later dropped charges, telling the court, "He needs help, not prison." Reverend Robert Dean of New Life Church encountered Brown when he found him digging through the church's dumpster. Taking pity, Dean allowed Brown temporary shelter. This arrangement ended when one of Brown's girlfriends came to Dean expressing fear. She felt he was very nice, very mannerable, but there was that certain little element she was afraid of, Dean recalled. When Brown discovered them talking, he burst into Dean's office declaring, "I forbid her to talk to males." Dean described Brown as having a Jekyll and Hyde personality, charming and humble one moment, controlling and threatening the next. This was the man who gained Sherletta Baber-Bay's trust and affection. The man who lived at 553 Sheldon Avenue for 2 years, a quiet presence at family gatherings, a shadow in the yellow house. Looking back, Anya Griffin later said, there were signs. How he'd answer questions for my sister, how she stopped coming to family events, how he always needed to know where she was. But we didn't see it then. We didn't know what to look for. March 13th, 2019, began like any ordinary Wednesday at 553 Sheldon Avenue. Radiators clanked to life around 6 a.m. as the programmable thermostat kicked in. Outside, the temperature hovered just above freezing under an iron-gray sky threatening snow. Jacqueline Baber-Bay left for work around 8 a.m., the front door clicking shut behind her. She called out a goodbye, not knowing it would be the last time she'd see her daughter and niece alive. What happened next can only be reconstructed from physical evidence, 911 calls, and the timeline established by investigators. Between 8 a.m. and 10:25 a.m., Daryl Brown shot Sherletta Baber-Bay in the back of the head as she lay in bed watching something on her iPad, earbuds still in her ears. The medical examiner later determined death was instantaneous. At least she didn't suffer. We don't know if Keyona heard the gunshot from elsewhere in the house. We don't know if she encountered Brown immediately after her aunt's murder or if hours passed before he turned his attention to her. We don't know if they spoke, if she pleaded, if she tried to reason with him. What we do know is that at 10:25 a.m., Keyona Griffin, terrified and hiding somewhere in the house, made a desperate call to 911. "I need help." The dispatcher, straining to hear, "Hello? I need help." "Where are you located?" 553 Sheldon Avenue Southeast. And then the words that should have changed everything. "Can you just hurry up, please? He's trying to kill me. He already killed my auntie. Can you hurry up, please?" Outside, the neighborhood continued its Wednesday morning routine. A postal worker delivered mail. Children sat in classrooms blocks away at Congress Elementary. A neighbor across the street brought in groceries. Life proceeded normally, unaware of the terror unfolding behind the yellow walls of 553 Sheldon. Inside the Grand Rapids 911 dispatch center, the call was categorized and officers were sent to the address. But crucially, tragically, the full content of Keyona's call wasn't relayed. The dispatcher either didn't hear or didn't communicate that the caller had reported a murder had already occurred. This critical failure would later become the subject of an internal investigation and would haunt everyone involved. It raised painful questions. If officers had known someone was already dead inside, would they have forced entry? Could Keyona have been saved? At 10:33 a.m., 3 Grand Rapids police officers arrived at 553 Sheldon Avenue. Their body cameras recorded every second of their 3-minute and 42-second visit. The footage shows them approaching cautiously, standard procedure for potential violence calls. They knock firmly on the front door. No answer. They circle to the side door, knock again. Nothing. Grand Rapids Police Department. One officer calls out, his voice echoing in the still morning air. They peer through windows, cupping hands around their eyes to block glare. Through one window, an officer reports seeing what looks like an empty dining room. Another reports nothing visible in the back of the house. They try calling Keyona's number. Straight to voicemail. All doors are locked. No windows broken. No sounds from inside. No calls for help. No visible signs of disturbance. One officer can be heard on the body cam footage saying, "Might be a 1096, referring to department code for a person with mental health issues. At 10:37 a.m., having found no justification for forcing entry and having received no additional information that a murder had already occurred inside, the officers leave. Inside the yellow house, Keyona Griffin remains hidden, terrified, waiting for help that isn't coming. What happened in the next 2 hours will never be fully known. Did Brown search for Keyona? Did she try to escape? Was she already wounded when she made the 911 call? The physical evidence suggests she was shot in an upstairs bedroom, but when precisely those shots were fired remains unclear. What is clear is that sometime between the police departure at 10:37 a.m. and 12:55 p.m., Keyona Griffin was shot 4 times, including a fatal shot to the face. The front door of 553 Sheldon Avenue had a distinctive sound, a slight squeal from hinges needing oil, followed by the thud of wood against the interior wall if opened too forcefully. It's the sound that announced Sanford Cummings II's arrival at 12:55 p.m. He had come to check on his sister after being unable to reach her by phone, a growing unease pushing him to drive over rather than wait for a call back. What he found inside transformed his life in an instant. "Come to 553 Sheldon," he gasped to the 911 dispatcher. "There's blood everywhere, and my sister's not moving." His voice rises in the recording, breaking with grief and shock. "Oh, my Lord, please. Keyona, please wake up. Please." The dispatcher tries maintaining calm, asking questions about the scene, but Sanford's attention is consumed by his sister's body, by the desperate hope that somehow, despite what his eyes tell him, she might still be alive. It's a heartbreaking moment of human denial, that brief, merciful period when the mind refuses to accept what it cannot bear. But reality cannot be held at bay for long. Keyona was gone. 7 minutes after Sanford's call, Grand Rapids police returned to 553 Sheldon Avenue for the second time that day. This time, there was no hesitation at the threshold. Officers entered with weapons drawn, moving room to room, first securing the scene, then confirming what Sanford had already reported. A young woman was dead. But the horror wasn't complete. In another upstairs bedroom, officers discovered a second victim. Charlotta Baber Bay lay in bed, partially covered by a blanket, an iPad beside her, earbuds still in her ears. She had been shot in the back of the head. The 4th resident of the house, the man known to the family as Jay, was gone. The brick chimney of 553 Sheldon Avenue still stood after the fire, a lone sentinel rising from charred remains. The rest of the house, its creaking floors, its history-soaked walls, its rooms where generations had lived and laughed and ultimately died, was gone. On July 10, 2020, just 16 months after the double homicide, flames tore through the yellow house in the early morning hours. The fire started in the living room, where candles had been left burning after a vigil for Keyona and Charlotta. By the time neighbors noticed the smoke and called 911, flames had already engulfed the front of the house. When firefighters arrived, they found a house transformed into a furnace, heat so intense it melted the siding on neighboring homes. In a back bedroom on the second floor, they found 65-year-old Jacqueline Baber-Bay and her 5-year-old great-grandson, Emirayon E.J. Cummings, both unconscious from smoke inhalation. Firefighters carried them out, performing CPR on the front lawn as neighbors watched in horror. Jacqueline was pronounced dead at the scene. E.J., small body limp in the arms of a paramedic, was rushed to Helen DeVos Children's Hospital. He died hours later. In the span of less than a year and a half, a family that had once filled a home with 3 generations of life had been nearly extinguished. Meanwhile, the hunt for Darrell Brown continues. In February 2020, Kent County prosecutors charged him with 2 counts of open murder. In July 2021, the U.S. Marshals Service added Brown to their 15 most wanted list, offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Brown has a history of violence and is a clear menace to society, said Bruce Norden, acting U.S. Marshal of the Western District of Michigan. The Marshals Service and our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners will use every available resource to bring him to justice. What makes Brown so difficult to capture is what made him dangerous to begin with: his ability to exist in the shadows. He lived a remarkably analog life in our digital world. No social media, no bank accounts, no credit cards, no cell phone contract, no utility bills, none of the electronic breadcrumbs most fugitives leave behind. He's a ghost, one investigator told me, requesting anonymity. Most fugitives make mistakes because they want to maintain their lifestyle. They use credit cards, they call family, they check social media. Brown didn't have any of those attachments to begin with. Brown would now be 50 years old. He's described as a 5 feet 8 inches black male with black hair and brown eyes, weighing approximately 180 pounds. He uses various aliases, including J.J. Robinson, Michael Richardson, and Marcus Wright. He looks very unassuming, Norden warned, and could literally be standing behind you in a grocery checkout lane. The story of what happened at 553 Sheldon Avenue is not just about murder and manhunt. It's about vulnerability, about the walls we put up or don't put up, about the people we let into our lives, and about the sometimes devastating consequences of trust misplaced. It's about the ripple effects of violence, how taking one life actually takes many, how survivors are forever changed by empty spaces at dinner tables, by birthdays never celebrated, by futures stolen. Keyona Griffin would be 31 now. Perhaps she would have become the teacher she dreamed of being. Perhaps she would have had children of her own. Perhaps she would have moved into her own apartment, as those listings on her phone suggested. Charlotta Baber-Bay would be 53, perhaps still collecting elephant figurines, perhaps finally experiencing the genuine love and partnership she deserved. Jacqueline Baber-Bay would be 71, perhaps retired, enjoying her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Emirayon E.J. Cummings would be 10, in 5th grade, perhaps playing basketball or video games, growing into the person he was meant to become. All these futures erased. Keyona Griffin's last whispered words, "Can you hurry up, please?" continue to echo, a plea for help that came too late for her, but might yet lead to justice if the right person recognizes Darrell Brown and makes a call. If you have information about Darrell Brown's whereabouts, please contact the U.S. Marshals Service or submit a tip online at usmarshals.gov/tips. There is a $25,000 reward for information leading directly to his arrest. For those experiencing domestic violence, help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline provides support 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. This has been No Tears for Black Girls. I'm Samantha Paul. Thank you for listening. Stay love, stay blessed, and stay safe.